Hello and welcome to Original Soundchat, where video game music is a work of art. On each episode, it's our goal to help you learn about 2 soundtracks from the world of games, as well as the people, stories, and critical tracks behind them. My name is Joe DeVader.
And I'm Peter Spezia. We're brought to you by Anonymous Dinosaur and Rhymes with Asia. It's time to appreciate great OSTs and the games that they come from without getting too bogged down in music theory. Up first this week for our 2 games is 2010's Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, The Game, a retro beat-em-up inspired by the graphic novels and Hollywood film that became the poster child for the perils of digital game ownership.
Following that is the follow-up to Keita Takahashi's deeply weird game about rolling up the world, with another Yu Miyake soundtrack to make it sound as unique as it can, 2005's We Katamari.
It's all about love this week. Scott loves Ramona. We love Katamari. It makes sense, right?
Yeah, that fits. My only suggestion was going to be like, colorful games. This is a lot better.
Yeah, I feel like it's more on brand thematically for these games, and then it somehow ties them together. Thank you again for submitting questions for our Thanksgiving 2020 Q&A. That was a lot of fun to do that episode, and we had a good time recording that. Hopefully you gleaned some nuggets of information out of that. But yeah, that was a very good thing to do. And Joe, we have an announcement at the top of the show for Anonymous Dinosaur as a whole.
Yeah, we have a merch shop now. It's mainly because, I wanted to have merch for some of our stuff. But it's an Anonymous Dinosaur merchandise store. You can find it at teespring.com/stores/anonymous-dinosaur. It's pretty self-explanatory there. We've got shirts, we got mugs, we got pet hoodies, we have human hoodies, we have stickers, we have the Smash Pieces logo and the original Soundchat logo. We have 2 designs based on Smash Pieces, and we're currently working to get another design for original Soundchat up there as well. So please look forward to that. And if you want to put our logo on your body, you can.
Especially with the holidays coming up. Might be a gift idea for your wish lists. Joe, how are you doing? What are you playing?
I took real good advantage of the week off we had last week. And I burned through a good amount of games. I started with Bug Snacks. Got through that. That game's fun. It's charming. It'll probably be in my top 10, but I can't say to be in my top 5. But it is a lot of fun. And it is very funny, like very well written. And then after that, I moved on to The Pathless, which is really good. That will actually probably be in my top 5 at the end of the year. It was very, very good. Very beautiful game. Very fun to play. Fantastic soundtrack by Austin Wintory, who we are both big fans of. After that, I played Spider-Man Miles Morales. That game was cool. I have small qualms with it. Like, I don't like that there's a skill in each section of the skill tree that is New Game Plus only. Like, that kind of... I'm iffy on that. But that's like my only big complaint about the game. It's very good. I think it's better than Spider-Man 2018. I've seen a lot of people voice the same sort of opinion. It adds enough that it's fantastic. I finished Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, and that game's good. That's a game we got to talk about one of these days. It's got a very good soundtrack. And lastly, I haven't finished Yakuza Like a Dragon. I'm not huge on it. Don't like it very much, but I'm going to push through. I'm going to try. And also Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which is also very, very good so far.
That is a lot of games to go through for sure. So I've been busy traveling with work and things, so I've been trying to squeeze in some time on PlayStation 5. I, like you, started and finished Miles Morales. Yeah, all the things you said, like, it's better than 2018. It's a tighter, more refined experience. I think we talked a little bit between ourselves. The soundtrack, it's good, but I don't think it stands out more than 2018 soundtrack does, though. It's really cool, don't get me wrong, and I like the inclusion of some licensed tracks, but not sure it will make a top 10 by year's end, so that was a little interesting.
It's very low-key. It's a lot more low-key than the original game.
Yeah. The trap beats are really cool, though. I definitely enjoyed that. Astro's Playroom, that is a delight. Like, wow. If you have a PlayStation 5, I mean, it comes installed, obviously, but if you're just like, oh, that looks weird and like not my speed, play Astro's Playroom. It's great. At the very least, like, it is a love letter to PlayStation, and a lot of people are saying around the internet, it's like they're doing the Nintendo thing, but having like the reverence for their brand and all the little references to PlayStation games throughout the years. It's so cool, in addition to highlighting what's new about the system, the controller, all that. So good times with that. And then also I'm about 17 hours in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and that is a beefy game. Lot to do there. So definitely some more episodes I'll be saying that I've been playing Valhalla. But in the meantime, there have been some headlines across the gaming industry, some of which involving the composers we've talked about on this show, and they keep doing some great work. Let's mention one of the big stealth game announcements from the past week. Just out of nowhere, Square Enix had a countdown on one of their websites, and usually that doesn't amount to much. Oh, it's actually a game announcement? It's Neo, The World Ends With You. Twooey gets a sequel. It's not The World Ends With 2, but you know, it'll do. It sure sounded like from the music snippets from the trailer that Takeharu Ishimoto should be back involved in the project, but no confirmation that I saw yet, but that's exciting for fans of that franchise.
I believe Ishimoto is still at Square. He worked on Kingdom Hearts 3 at the very least, I think. So I believe he's still at Square, so it would make sense if it's still him. And yes, the music did sound like it was his stuff. It's about time.
Yeah, it really is.
It took like 10 years, if not longer. Oh my god, it's about time. Very excited for that. Meanwhile, a Final Fantasy VII Remake acoustic album is now available for purchase. It includes arrangements by multiple composers, including Kevin Penkin, who did a Prelude medley, including the bombing mission music, and Yasunori Nishiki, who did Let the Battles Begin / Fight On. Those are just the two we've talked about on this show. I haven't had a chance to listen to the album because I haven't bought it yet, but I'm planning to eventually. So I love acoustic stuff, and the Final Fantasy VII Remake soundtrack is still the best soundtrack of the year, so very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, that should be really cool to listen to. And unsurprisingly, Imposter Factory, or the third game in the To the Moon lineage, has been delayed until spring of next year. Kan Gao, the writer and composer, hints that another game is being worked on at the same time. And he also confirms that the To the Moon animated film is still happening. So, cool things going on with that franchise, but when we haven't heard too much about Imposter Factory, not surprising that it got pushed a little bit into next year.
Mm-hmm. It's apparently mostly because they've been having to, like most of us, adapt to work from home and all that. So it's apparently still coming. In the video, he says it's about 80% done. So it shouldn't have to be delayed again, hopefully, is what he's hoping. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Let's get into talking about our first game, though, this week. It's finally time for Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game. A very long title, but it makes sense, right? Right. So, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game, was released for PlayStation 3 in North America on August 10th, 2010. PAL got the game there on August 11th. Then it was a worldwide release on Xbox 360 a couple weeks later on August 25th, 2010. The game was no longer sold on those platforms digitally, since it was an arcade game. No longer sold after December 30th, 2014. But coming soon, 10 years after the release of the original game, a complete edition of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, is going to be released, still apparently in this quarter, Q4 2020. This will be on all major platforms, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, PC, and Stadia. Honestly, it was a game I wanted to talk about. It has a great soundtrack, but surprised that the game's date has not been announced yet, or there's been no update. I mean, this was announced in September 2020, and yeah, we just don't know the release date yet as of recording. Fingers crossed that it'll be announced soon, but just kind of wanted to get it on your radar in case you want to pick up the complete edition soon.
Now that you've said it, it's going to be announced tomorrow, and by the time this episode comes out,
we're going to look real dumb.
This will be outdated.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. The game was developed by Ubisoft Montreal and Ubisoft Chengdu, published by Ubisoft. Chengdu is based in China. So the game is a retro side-scrolling beat-em-up game. You can play as either Scott Pilgrim, Ramona Flowers, Kim Pine, or Steven Stills, along with the unlockable character Nega Scott and the downloadable characters Knives Chow and Wallace Wells, and these characters will all be included in the complete edition release of the game. Basically, you go from left to right, you defeat enemies, you collect coins, and the coins will be dropped by those enemies you defeat. You take your money, you spend it on items and shops, and you progress through 7 chapters, either solo or with up to 4 players in co-op. Have you seen the movie Scott Pilgrim vs. the World? Well, the plot is very, very similar, but the gist of it as the game describes, all that you really need to know is Scott Pilgrim is in love with Ramona Flowers, but he must defeat her 7 evil ex-boyfriends. And if you've seen the movie,
7 evil exes.
You know, that's a little questionable. So, yeah, really the big question is, can Scott defeat the evil exes? It's really it. It's a pretty simple story, but it serves a video game well, I suppose. Joe, what are our experiences with Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game?
I have never played it. Ever. I love the movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's a fantastic movie. It's definitely my favorite Edgar Wright film, though Hot Fuzz does give it a bit of a run for its money.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never played the game, mostly because by the time I got a PS3, it was gone.
Yeah.
And also just, I don't like beat 'em ups. We've talked about that. We talked about this when we talked about River City Girls. Like, I just don't like beat 'em ups in general. So didn't really have a huge interest. Still kind of don't. And weirdly enough, also never listened to the soundtrack, despite the fact that I am a fan of the people who wrote it.
Okay, that's very interesting. I only played a little bit of it I was at a friend's house, and we gave it a shot, tried the first level or two, and it's like, all right, it's fun, but it is a little repetitive as beat 'em ups are. It does have a cool style to it. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It's one of these ones where knew I was going to be talking about this game eventually in some capacity, mostly just to learn more about it, because like there's one main song that's like, I think the standout from the soundtrack, and then, well, that sounds great. What does the rest sound like? So good to finally talk about it. I wish it were under the circumstances that we'd know exactly when it's coming out as far as this complete edition re-release, but again, maybe we'll find out soon. So the creator of the Scott Pilgrim series, Brian Lee O'Malley, and the director of the film adaptation, Edgar Wright, they were also involved in the development of this game. According to O'Malley, he was initially approached by Telltale Games to make a Scott Pilgrim adventure game, but he declined as he could not see it as part of that genre. Let's keep in mind, this probably would have been around 2008, 2009, a little bit before the 2010 release of the game. Yeah, Telltale was not in great shakes then. Not a solid company. The Walking Dead had not risen that company's cachet in the public eye, so to speak, and a cachet with that format of games. So Wow, what could have been if it were just slightly different?
I can't picture that, though. Like, I can't picture that at all. How would the fights work? I guess they could figure it out. I don't know. That sounds weird.
I guess that's true. And it's also not really a story that involves player choice. Like, there's a pretty set narrative. But I don't know. It's always interesting just to think, like, different games in the Telltale-like formula. Of course, this is now with hindsight, what those games have been. Unfortunately, rest in peace Telltale, but even still. The game was first announced at San Diego Comic-Con in late July 2009. And overall, as far as its release timing, with mid-August 2010, it was essentially released alongside the movie. The film released on August 13th in the United States and August 30th in the UK. And let's take a second, Joe. You're a fan of that film. I'm a fan of that film. Can we just talk about the cast of that film? If you haven't seen it in a while, go back with some 2020 eyes, so to speak. You have Michael Cera, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Kieran Culkin, Chris Evans, Anna Kendrick, Aubrey Plaza, Brie Larson, Brandon Routh, Mae Whitman, Jason Schwartzman. It's a heck of a cast. When you first hear the voice of Katara coming out of one of the characters, it's pretty great casting. And Chris Evans as Lucas Lee before he was Captain America, phenomenal.
It's one of the only movies where I like Michael Cera. I don't mind him, but I'm not a huge fan of his acting style. But he is such a good Scott Pilgrim. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I did not realize that was her until a couple years later when I went to theaters to see the movie 10 Cloverfield Lane and was like, that woman looks really familiar. Who is she? And then I Googled it, and she's Ramona Flowers.
The perfect Ramona Flowers.
She's such a good Ramona Flowers. But the one that always surprises me, because I forget every single time, is the fact that every time I forget that Aubrey Plaza's in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Every single time.
The foul-mouthed shop clerk, Julie, right?
Yeah, this would have been before Parks and Rec, wouldn't it have?
I think so, yeah.
So this was even before and Brie Larson, before she was Captain Marvel. Like, it's a lot. It's a really, really, you're right. It's a very, very good cast. And I'm pretty sure this movie is the first time that I saw a movie with Anna Kendrick in it. And it's probably the reason why, as a teenager, I had a crush on Anna Kendrick.
I mean, she had already been in Up in the Air, the year before and kind of made her mark there. But I mean, yeah, that was still at the early start of her career trajectory. I mean, even Kieran Culkin, Macaulay's brother, who has now been in Succession. Like it's just these little roles here and there. It's just fantastic. But we do note that Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, is infamous for being delisted from digital storefronts in late 2014. They say it was probably due to the license expiring. That's what people speculate. At least for a long time, or at least quite a while, it was the poster child, and for some people it still was to this day, of this is why games should have a physical option. This is the problem with digital licenses and buying games digitally, because these publishers can take it down at a whim and we'll never be able to re-download these games ever again. I mean, of course, since then PT is now that unfortunately shining example,
and that game has zero chance of ever coming out again.
I mean, yes. But in May 2020, after the film and the game's 10-year anniversary, both Brian Lee O'Malley and Edgar Wright tweeted Ubisoft to, hey, can we bring the game back alongside a re-release of the film? In August 2020, O'Malley tweeted that Ubisoft had reached out to him. And then, a month later, September 2020, the complete edition was announced in a Nintendo Direct. A long time coming for those who had missed their chance to play the game, who, had to dig out old Xbox 360s and PlayStation 3s to play the game, but they could never re-download it anywhere else. It should be an interesting re-release and see how it's judged today, though, because at the time it was reviewed fairly well, with a Metacritic score of 77 on PS3 and 73 on Xbox 360. Critics loved the soundtrack, and they appreciated the throwback to old school beat-em-up games. They even recognized how it was the best modern brawler at the time since Castle Crashers. But unfortunately, its difficulty, the need for grinding, lack of online multiplayer and drop-in multiplayer, and just overall there's too much chaos on the screen when you have 4 players all going and fighting. These were different points of critique. For what it's worth, though, online multiplayer would be added in a DLC update that arrived in March 2013, like 2.5 years after the game released.
That's,
Yeah, that's I guess better late than never, I suppose. It was nominated for Best Downloadable Game and won Best Adapted Video Game at the 2010 Spike Video Game Awards, which also just shows how dated those award categories are from 2010. Its legacy? Yeah, this complete edition that's coming out. Again, we don't know the release date. We don't even know the price. But when I try to do some research, Googling Scott Pilgrim complete edition, game complete edition, Nintendo eShop or something like that, there was a shop link from like a Ubisoft page. And on like this little sample card, it said $15, $14.99 in the United States, which is surprising. I would have guessed it'd be like a $20 release or something like that, but we'll see what the actual release date and the price are when it comes out. But we're talking about it today because of the amazing soundtrack on this game, and it's composed by the band Anamanaguchi. This is the 3rd time we've talked about a band on this show. In our Vose episode, in episode 47, Joe talked about the Night Keepers, and then in episode 69, talking about Monster Prom, Joe also brought up Messer Chups. So this is the first time I'm talking about a band, and what a one to bring up with Anamanaguchi. They are a chiptune-based pop and rock band from New York City. Members include lead songwriters and guitarists Peter Berkman and Ari Warnar, bassist James DeVito, and drummer Luke Silas. They essentially, as chiptune bands do, they create music that sounds inspired by the Nintendo Entertainment System and the Game Boy. They say that they're not just inspired by video game music, but also, quote, simple pop stuff like Weezer and the Beach Boys, as well as Janet Jackson. But Japanese culture is also a huge influence, particularly J-pop and the Japanese producer Yasutaka Nakata. So 3 of the 4 members of the band majored in music technology at New York University, yet they all found themselves working as interns at fashion companies while studying fashion at Parsons School of Design. One interview claims that Anamanaguchi came about from a member in one of Berkman's former bands pronouncing gibberish in the style of Jabba the Hutt. Several other interviews, though, note that the band has explained that their name comes from their internships at Armani, Prada, and Gucci, and so people began calling them the Armani Prada Gucci Boys, which eventually kind of slurred and turned into Anamanaguchi.
That's the story I've always heard about why their name is that.
Which is interesting. I mean, for them to be all in that field and then, create a band and have that turn out, it's really neat. They have been certainly busy as far as like creating their own chiptune music and things like that. But I found it interesting that the Wikipedia page noted that in May 2016, the band was the opening act at the North American Miku Expo Tour, finishing at a 2-show event at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City. The band returned to the stage each night and performed their single, Miku, live with Hatsune Miku for her encore.
And that song is so good. It's my favorite song by them. And it's an official Miku song too. Like, wow. It's just, it's so good. Anamanaguchi is good stuff, man.
It's so good. Like that chiptune sound, it's a lot of bands can try to do it, but I feel like they're one of the best at just nailing that energy, that style. As far as their discography goes, as far as creating game soundtracks, they obviously composed for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. They also made their own game that they scored alongside it, called Capsule Silence 24. This came out in 2016, a soundtrack released in 2 parts. I had never heard of this, but Anamanaguchi made their own game. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that game either. That is news to me.
But they have 3 studio albums: Dawn Metropolis from 2009, Endless Fantasy from 2013, and USA, in brackets, from 2019.
Do you happen to have a favorite Anamanaguchi track?
No, honestly, because I was familiar with the group only from this game and didn't really do much digging as far as their usual other work after that. So I don't. And it was really a delight to not only learn more about them, but honestly hear more of this soundtrack because my knowledge was very limited.
For what it's worth, my favorite Anamanaguchi track is Mess. Mess is very good.
When it comes to the historical development research for this soundtrack, there isn't too much, honestly. But it is worth it to note that Anamanaguchi's soundtrack for the game was released on Amazon and iTunes by ABKCO Records in North America on August 24th, 2010. So just before, the day before the Xbox 360 release. And it was released internationally on August 30th, 2010. It debuted at number 3 on the Billboard's Heatseekers albums chart.
Damn.
So it is a video game album that made waves in pop music charts. So let's hear what that sounds like in the context of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game. Let's start with the first of our 5 critical tracks. This is Scott Pilgrim Anthem. Just gets right into it. This is the main menu theme for the game. And it starts with this, quiet, high-pitched chip tune sound, I guess. But then it really gets right into it, delivering a simple, powerful, and energetic theme. I feel like if you had not heard Anamanaguchi's work before, it gives you not only the vibe of what their band is like, but also just what the vibe of this soundtrack is going to be like immediately, as well as the different kind of sounds of the instruments that kind of play in that chiptune space. So this song was featured in the Complete Edition trailer as kind of highlighting that, yep, the game is finally coming back after 10 years. And it's a pretty short track overall, but I feel like it's an important one for establishing the sound of the game, the main theme of the game, and just overall, what we're kind of getting ourselves into for this Anamanaguchi soundtrack.
I don't think you mentioned it up above, but one of the things that really, really puts Anamanaguchi apart from other chiptune bands like Null Sleep or Saber Pulse is that while most of those bands focus entirely on chiptune, they also have like you mentioned, they have a guitarist and they have a bassist and a real drummer. And it just gives it this really unique feel. And yeah, this song is Anamanaguchi to a T. I think the next track is quintessential Anamanaguchi sound but this one is definitely up there.
Yes. And as far as telling these tracks in a narrative order, it would only stand to reason that the famous song from this game comes next here on the 5 critical tracks. Number 2, this is Another Winter. This is the song for Stage 1, Frozen Suburbs. So basically, once you pick your character that you're playing as, this is the first gameplay. Once you get past that map screen into gameplay, you're in there, and the text highlights Snowy Toronto. Don't be late for the big show. This is the song from the game. If there's only one song you need to know from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game, it is Another Winter. As I referenced before, this is my introduction to Anamanaguchi. Playing this game, really digging this song. And it's honestly like the only song that I remembered from this game before I researched it further. It's really just that memorable. It's a good thing that the first level is so long. It's like 12, 15 minutes long. I was watching it in LP, and it's like, yeah, wow, it goes for a while, but also this track goes places. I do recommend a full listen. 30 seconds for a clip is nowhere near enough. And yeah, honestly, this is an all-timer for an opening level tune.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, this is like quintessential Anamanaguchi sound. Like you could put this on a speaker and not tell me what it was, and I would immediately know it was Anamanaguchi. This is pretty much how most of their stuff sounds, or at least their older stuff. I haven't actually listened to USA, I'll be real. I should do that, but like, this sounds a lot like some of their stuff on Dawn Metropolis. It's very, very good.
And that makes sense. It's kind of right around the same time. Number 3 on the Critical 5. Let's get into the next one. This is Just Like in the Movies. Such positive vibes with this one. This plays in Stage 2, Casa Loma's film set, and the text for this level says, "Movie madness, follow that star." I thought that just listening to this soundtrack and listening to these tracks, this kind of gave off vibes of like a victorious end level, or maybe like a credits theme. But nope, level 2 in the game. Okay. It's seemingly a fan favorite, or at least a popular one that's used in a lot of medleys for the game. So I feel like not only did it have a really good sound to it, a good energy, a positive energy to it, but it's pretty popular with the fandom. I feel like that was a good choice to include this. I just did not expect it to be the second level.
Yeah, I could absolutely see why you'd think this was like a credits theme, because it does absolutely sound like one. It gives that feeling of like, you did it!
Mm-hmm.
And being Stage 2 is bizarre, but hey, you know what? It's still good, and that's all that matters.
But it makes sense, because Lucas Lee is a movie star, and he's the second of the Evil X's. But what would it be like if you battled Lucas Lee? Let's get to number 4 on the Critical 5. This is Skate or Live. So this is the boss battle against Lucas Lee, the second of the Evil X's. And oh boy, right off the bat, as you can tell from the clip, this piece is relentless. It's just such a crazy tempo right off the bat. And it feels like, yeah, you're on a skateboard and you're going downhill. Almost like a roller coaster crazy kind of effect. But I feel like it is perfect for a boss fight. Like, it just amps you up and it has good energy right away. And it also feels like it's a pretty quintessential, like, we're trying to emulate 8-bit kind of sound. I feel like works that would later try to do this, like Jake Kaufman's work in Shovel Knight, like, you can kind of get the same sense of sound there, especially in the later part of the piece before the loop. But yeah, just a great piece overall. And this was featured in the second half of the complete edition trailer. So again, another track that really kind of exemplifies the game, used in promotional materials. Just a really fun energy piece for a good boss battle.
If not for the live instruments, I would definitely say I could hear this being on a Super Nintendo or an NES. I guess an NES. Why would I say Super Nintendo? Super Nintendo would never sound like this. Going down the thing with the skateboard just reminds me of how that fight goes in the movie.
Yes.
Can you grind that rail? Oh, God, that movie's so good.
There it goes, watching. Interesting how that gets highlighted in the game, for sure. But let's wrap up the Critical 5 here with number 5. This is Rock Club. Man, this one's so fun. So good. This takes place, honestly, during Stage 3. Stage 3 is titled Leo's Place, or at least that's the location. The text says, Evil X crossover. Take down the Clash at Demon Head. And you know, I listen to the soundtrack, and I pick out the songs that I think really stand out, aside from Another Winter, because obviously that's going there in my opinion. And what do you know? It's the opening theme, it's Stage 2, it's Stage 3, and it's the boss battle for Stage 2. Nothing for the back half of the game, sorry. But, you know, it just shows that, like, they really grab you with great tracks in the soundtrack early. Honestly, some would argue I'd say the best songs on the soundtrack. But yeah, I mean, this song in particular, sure, sounds like a rock song. And obviously it's infused with that 8-bit energy. Overall, I think it fits well for the level where you meet the Clash at Demon Head. But listening to it, I just think, how cool would this have been in like a Guitar Hero or Rock Band game? Like, that would be fantastic. It's another popular one with fans, it seems, especially when it comes to people trying to do metal covers on YouTube. Ideal song for something like that for this one. Just a great listen, I think.
This is absolutely... It's between this and Another Winter for my favorite song on this Critical 5, but this one might eke it out because it's really cool. Mm-hmm. Like, oh man. And again, a reminder that this character was played by Brie Larson before she was in Marvel.
I mean, yeah. And Brie Larson even had a career before that. I mean, with 21 Jump Street. Yeah, people forget she was in that too.
I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
Oh, you'd love it. It's great.
This was my first experience with Brie Larson. Yeah, for being Clash at Demon Head, oh man. This song rules. It's really good.
I really, really like this Critical 5 as a whole. But we have a couple songs on the cutting room floor. I have 2. One of these is Bollywood. When I listened to this soundtrack, I thought I only had remembered Another Winter. And then this song came up because it is the boss battle in Stage 1 against Matthew Patel. Really, really cool sound on how they kind of emulate these different drum beats at the beginning, especially in the intro. And then it just goes hard, like mixing these kind of Indian Bollywood sounds with like almost quintessential video game boss battle sound. It's really, really high intensity. And, hearing that intro, I'd forgotten, oh yeah, I remember this one from playing the bit I did. But obviously Another Winter stood out a lot more.
I agree. This is really cool with the Indian vibe. I get the vibe. This reminds me of Chip Zell's work on River City Girls. When I hear this, because it sounds a lot like some of the boss themes from that game. So, hey, I mean, chiptune community, like, as far as I'm aware, they're kind of like video games where everybody knows everybody, but I could be completely wrong on that. Please do not take my word for that.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. That would make a lot of sense. My other one on the cutting room floor is Sushi Box. This one plays during the Chengdu Gardens, which is essentially the second half of Stage 4. And Scott's battling ninjas. Okay. The piece as a whole overall kind of starts pretty slow, but really picks up with the drums and more guitars here, as you're hearing in the clip. It actually, when I'm listening to it, it reminds me a lot of Rainbow Dragon Eyes' work on The Messenger.
I could hear that.
And that's kind of why I really took to it. It's not a piece I don't think that stands out much in the game or its point in the narrative, but this one's for me, and I kind of liked what it reminded me of. So what will I never forget about Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game, aside from its very long title? It's really how it became that sort of brand and face of, yeah, maybe we shouldn't delist games. Maybe they're important to protect the legacy of games and just to be able to archive and save and play these games. And I'm really glad that they're bringing out a complete edition. Is it a game that I have such nostalgia for that I'm going to download and make everyone play with me? No, but honestly, I'm glad I got to learn more about this soundtrack and specifically Anamanaguchi because, yeah, they are among chiptune royalty.
For me, because I've never played the game, and honestly, I don't think I will. I don't think I care that much. It's like, it sounds like it's a fantastic soundtrack, but from what I've heard, it's like a middling beat 'em up, and I already don't like beat 'em ups at the best of times, so not a huge amount of interest on my end. But I will always think of the movie, because the movie is very good.
If you haven't seen the movie, you owe it to yourself to see the movie. It's highly enjoyable.
I should also read the comic one of these days.
Oh yeah, for sure. The graphic novel was something I had no knowledge of at all, especially going into the movie. So you don't need to be a fan of that to appreciate the movie. It should be on Netflix in North America. And I think, according to some ads I got served somehow on Facebook, I think it just arrived on Netflix in the UK. So check it out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great movie.
So before we cover our next game, let's talk about a transition highlighting a fan cover, fan remake, whether it's on OC Remix, YouTube, wherever. Found a guitar medley for Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, the game from DSC on YouTube. I had to pick out the section where he plays Another Winter because with full real instruments, it sounds just as good. Granted, Anamanaguchi has something special with their chiptune, but like a full metal sound, yeah, this rules. Please enjoy. We'll be right back.
Well, Scott might love Ramona, but I love Katamari, and honestly, I think it's safe to say that we love Katamari, which just happens to be the title of our second game. See what I did there? The perfect segue. All right.
It was very good, very clever. I'm impressed.
We Love Katamari was originally released for the PlayStation 2 on July 6th, 2005 in Japan, on September 30th, 2005 in North America, and then in February of 2006 in Europe and Australia. It was developed and published by Namco, except in the PAL regions, where it was published by, of all companies, Electronic Arts. Huh. Odd, but alright. I talked about its predecessor, Katamari Damacy, one of my favorite games of all time, almost 2 years ago, in episode 2 of this show. I'm pretty sure this might be the earliest callback, and will remain that for at least 2 episodes. So, the Katamari series, if you do not know, because it has been almost 2 years since I talked about it, is a series all about rolling a ball to make it a bigger ball. You play as the Prince of all Cosmos as he rolls around a small bumpy ball called a Katamari. If your Katamari rolls over an object that is smaller than it, that object will stick to the Katamari. And the more items you have stuck to your Katamari, the bigger it gets, which will allow you to pick up bigger and bigger objects, basically taking it from a thumbtack to picking up an entire continent. We Love Katamari plays exactly the same as Katamari Damacy, with the introduction of some more gimmicky levels, such as keeping a campfire lit, which sucks, or rolling up clouds, which sucks. The others aren't bad. Those two, though, stand out as my least favorite Katamari levels in the world. But for the most part, the core gameplay is exactly the same. There's also some physics improvements in there. I believe those physics improvements moved over to reroll when it was remade, which might explain why Ben keeps talking to me about how rerolls feels wrong, and he is wrong for thinking that. So, basically, the way Katamari Damacy works is you are given a time limit and a size that you need to be before time runs out. That is how most levels in the series work. The story of We Love Katamari is weird, to say the least, but then again, it wouldn't be a Katamari game if it wasn't. I can't really tell it better than the summary that was on Wikipedia, which is, quote, after completing his goal to recreate the stars in the sky, the King of all Cosmos was surprised to discover that he had many fans down on Earth. Thus begins We Love Katamari, where the King of all Cosmos seeks to help fulfill the wishes of his fans, with the help from his son and his son's cousins, who once again travel Earth, rolling things up into a Katamari. So basically, the plot sums up as, in the first game, when the king had numerous countless living creatures rolled up into a ball and thrown into space to experience nuclear fusion up close and personal, for some reason, their response to that was, "Oh, that's so cool," and not, "Oh God." So, I mean, hey, that's not even the weirdest thing in Katamari, so what am I even talking about here? And this is where I will ask, Peter, what are our experiences with We Love Katamari?
Not much, to be honest, because I played Reroll based on your recommendation with Katamari Damacy, yeah, a couple years ago, but I've never played We Love Katamari. Just haven't.
I love We Love Katamari. It is I have one more Katamari game after this that I could potentially talk about, and it's one I don't like, but it still has a pretty good soundtrack, so you'll probably hear about that at some point. I like Damacy more than I like We Love. I know that's probably a hot take, and a lot of people disagree with me, including our friend Luke, who heavily disagrees with me on that opinion, but look, I'm the Katamari expert now. I'm the one with the podcast talking about Katamari, and I say Damacy's better, but We Love Katamari is still a pretty good game, and I desperately hope that it gets the reroll treatment like Damacy did. Honestly, I just want it to happen. If you haven't bought Katamari Damacy Reroll, do it. For me. Even if you don't think you'd like it, which you would like it, by the way. It's Katamari Damacy. How could you hate it?
Plus, it's, as we've been saying on this show, it's on Switch, it's on PC, it's on PS4, it's on Xbox One, it's on, it might even be on Stadia for all it's worth. But, it's a really good game. I do recommend it too.
Yeah, it's great. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's my favorite game soundtrack of all time. Go buy it so that they make the sequel too. Or make a new one. I would take that too, Namco, if you're listening. Anyways, I wasn't able to find like anything on this game in terms of like development research or anything like that. There are like rumors that go around. I mean, the fact is that this was the last Katamari game directed by Keita Takahashi. He left Namco shortly after this game came out, I believe. And he didn't even want to make this game. The rumor is that he did not want to make a sequel to Katamari, but Namco kind of twisted his arm because he didn't want Katamari to turn into a franchise. And then, surprise, it did. I'm still kind of glad it did, but I can definitely see why he wouldn't have wanted that. Keita Takahashi's a weird dude.
And it's also kind of why you see, I think, it in the referential humor of like, oh, the king has so many fans on Earth. It's like, it's really self-referential and kind of a little satirical in a way.
Mm-hmm. I think that's 100% what it was supposed to be. So I think that's why, as far as I know, future games just aren't as good. But that's kind of where that went. It got largely positive reviews upon release, though. We loved it. It currently has a Metacritic of 86. People did like this game quite a bit. One of the main criticisms lobbed at the game, actually, was that it was a little too similar to Damacy. It's very, very close to being the same game. In fact, one writer at the Detroit Free Press, who gave the game 3 out of 4 stars, stated, quote, "The new game is very much like the old, or I would give We Love Katamari 4 stars."
It's kind of weird to see a hometown paper talking about game reviews where I don't think I've ever seen one in that paper.
Yeah, that was one of the ones quoted on Wikipedia specifically, so interesting. But it seems like the main criticism was like, if you've played Katamari Damacy, you've essentially already played We Love Katamari, just with changes to the story and all that. It didn't win a ton of awards, it seems. It won the Game Critics Award for Best Puzzle/Trivia/Parlor Game at E3 2005, which that's a hell of a name for an award category. And then after release, it was nominated for Best Audio at the 2005 BAFTAs, but it did not win. And its main theme won the award for Best Original Vocal/Pop Song at the Gang Awards in 2006. And that seems to be the only awards that it won after it was released. At least that's all I could see. So let's talk about one of the composers on this game, because we've already talked about Yu Miyake 2 entire years ago. And he was still like the head of the sound team for this game, but like the original game, it has a huge team of composers that were actually working on it. And one of them was Akitaka Tohyama. Of all the places I found information on him, this is the weirdest place I've ever found information on any composer, because it was an interview on the FL Studio website. Like the official website for the DAW. He was born on July 30th, year unknown, in Tokyo, Japan. He goes by the alias Ajudika, when in his spare time he works as a psychedelic trance artist. He has also gone by the aliases To-Yama and To, Toh, all lowercase. According to him, he started learning piano at age 4, and then he moved on to computer-based music at age 14. And for the most of his childhood and teenage years, he was composing music as a hobby. But then, when he found himself in his 4th year of college, and college was wrapping up, he realized, oh, I have to look for a job, which is a mood. And he happened to notice that some game companies were looking for sound creators, so he sent out multiple demo tracks to multiple studios He doesn't really mention which ones he applied to, but we know that he ended up being hired by Namco. And then he went freelance in 2013, and he is still currently a freelance composer. He says while his favorite genre is trance, he does dabble in other genres, especially when writing for video games. He likes to adapt to what the game needs. So in terms of his discography, though, he's worked on a good amount of stuff, especially during his time at Namco. His first project, as far as I could tell, according to VGMDB, was on Xevious 3D/G+, which that's one of Namco's big, shooter side shoot-em-ups things, I think. Is Xevious side? I'm pretty sure it is.
I think it might be top down.
Is it? Am I thinking of Gradius? I'm thinking of Gradius. I think
you are. Yep.
So yeah, there you go. But for a long time, it seems like he was mostly well known for his work on the Tekken franchise. He was on the sound team, or was the head of the sound team for Tekken Tag Tournament, Tekken 4, Tekken 5, Tekken 6, Tekken Tag Tournament 2, and Tekken 7. So he has done a lot of work for that franchise. He's been a staple, it seems, since his inclusion in it. He was one of the composers on the original Soul Calibur. In terms of the Katamari series, he has touched every single mainline game in the series. That includes Katamari Damacy, where he did the songs The Moon and the Prince, You Are Smart, and Stardust Fanfare. I believe 2 of those were on either the Critical 5 or the Cutting Room Floor back in the day. He, of course, worked on We Love Katamari, the PSP game Me and My Katamari, the Xbox 360 game Beautiful Katamari, PS3's Katamari Forever, and the Vita's Touch My Katamari, which was the last new Katamari game to be released. He is credited for working on Ridge Racer 7, Pac-Man Championship Edition DX. Much to my roommate's delight, he was the head composer on Muscle March, the really weird WiiWare game. It's like that game where you're chasing somebody as a big group of muscle-clad men, and the guy you're chasing flexes into different positions to make holes in the walls.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's so stupid. Ben is a huge fan of that game and got so happy when I told him that I was talking about the composer of Muscle March. He also worked on the soundtrack for the original Taiko no Tatsujin, which we know as Taiko Drum Master. He is credited as doing arrangements in Project Cross Zone. And boy, when you look at his VGMDB page, he has done a lot of work on the Idolmaster series. Like, a lot of it. Over half of his page is Idolmaster stuff. And that's a series that seems impenetrable from where I stand, so I'll never understand it, so whatever. While I wasn't able to find a lot of information on the game's development, I was able to find a good amount of information on the soundtrack's development, which is rad. So, like I said, much like the original Katamari Damacy, this game was worked on by multiple composers in order to give each track a unique feel. From the last, this team included Yu Miyake, Asuka Sakai, Yoshihito Yano, Ilrim, Dokaka, Akitaka Tohyama, Hideki Tobita, Tomoki Kanda, Yuri Misumi, Hiroshi Okubo, Katsuro Tajima, Takeshi Ugajin, and Takaki Horigome. Most of this group apparently also worked on the original Katamari Damacy.
Kind of gives the Yakuza series a run for its money.
Yeah, just about. I think Yakuza still beats it out. But this comes close. In addition, the soundtrack also features a total of 33 performers in various sort of types of musical skill sets. Like, wow, that's a lot of people. I talked about back in the day how Miyake's goal for Katamari Damacy was to make a soundtrack that sounded wholly unique in itself. Like, he didn't want it to sound like any other game sounded at the time. And he succeeded with, like, flying colors. It's such a good soundtrack, and it doesn't sound like, even today, it doesn't sound like anything you'd hear in video games. He had different plans for We Love Katamari, and unfortunately, it seems like a big theme of those plans is that they fell through most of the time. including his original plan for the soundtrack was to only collaborate with non-Japanese artists in order to contrast with the fact that the first game exclusively used Japanese artists. But unfortunately, he had to scrap these plans due to a, quote, lack of foreign friends and ability to negotiate, which is a shame. I would have loved to hear that version of the soundtrack.
That's so sad. I mean, yeah, you can kind of see the plan there of like it being a more worldly game, worldly experience.
Yeah, it would have been neat. I think that would have been cool. But after those plans fell through, his next plan was to encourage his team to take what they had made for Damashi and up the quality to create a, quote, more grown-up feeling sound. This was also not without setbacks, though, because Miyake wished to make the music of We Love Katamari, quote, far beyond imagination and exceeding fans' expectations. And he does not feel like he accomplished that goal. He feels as though he was being held back by a lack of resources provided to him by Namco, which is unfortunate. An official soundtrack release for We Love Katamari happened on July 20th, 2005, though it did not include every track in the game. These missing tracks would not be released on an official soundtrack until they were included on a bonus disc alongside the Me and My Katamari soundtrack release. Weird, but hey, whatever. So, what does this sound like? Well, once again, it sounds like it could only be a Katamari soundtrack, because that's how Katamari soundtracks roll. Let's talk about the 5 critical tracks. The first one is the main theme, the one that won at the Gang Awards. It is Katamari on the Swing.
Walking Mr. Sunshine. Na 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 Katamari on the swing.
This is so good. I love it. This song was composed by Yoshihito Yano and Yu Miyake, vocals by Shigeru Matsuzaki. Apparently one of the backup vocals in the chorus, though, is Yu Miyake himself. So that's pretty neat. It is kind of a new take on the original main theme of the first game, being Katamari on the Rocks. It's got a lot of parts from that, including the na 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 na, but like in a different framing. More swing, very very neat. And I think I prefer On the Rocks overall, but this song is just really good though. It has this really upbeat attitude, feels really infectious. Overall, like it's impossible to not want to snap along to this song. Come on, how do you not bob your head? It's just, this song is quintessentially Katamari in tone, and it's very fun, and I love it.
So cool to hear the big band jazz, the swing. And even in the clip, we get this, okay, Mr. Sunshine.
Yeah, it's so like, good.
Oh, man. You're just in for a whole bunch of fun right away.
Yeah, and like this is generally the tone you're going to get from Katamari, just in general. It's so good. And speaking of the tone you're going to get from Katamari in general, critical track number 2 is Baby Universe. This song was composed by Hiroshi Okubo, vocals by Maki Nomiya, and I think this one sounds the most like something I would have heard in Damashi. Like, for sure. I tend to think that it has some similarities to Lonely Rolling Star. Maybe? Slight? I don't know. It's not exactly the same, but it's the same vibe, I feel like. The violins and the drum part are all very, very good, but I think the vocalist absolutely kills it in this song. Baby Universe. It's just, she's really good. I adore this song.
It's super energetic, super happy. Yeah, even like the chit-chit-chiz. It's like, it may not be in the clip, but it's, earlier in the piece. Yeah, wow. It's really, really fun. I think, a comparison to at least somewhat similar to Lonely Rolling Star is pretty apt. And yeah, that's a good way of thinking about that. It's probably the most similar to how the original game sounded.
Oh man, you just made me realize the they're kisses. Oh no.
Oh,
the song's so cute. Anyways, let's tone it down a little bit because wow, we're going to tone it down real hard with critical track number 3, Angel Rain. This song was composed by Hideki Tobita, vocals by you, an artist named you, not you. Not you specifically. I've seen it on the internet called Heaven's Rain, but on the official soundtrack release listed on VGMDB, it is listed as Angel Rain. So that's the name we're going to go with for this. And this song is just so peaceful and relaxing. I mean, in the second half of the song, like, it builds up to a bit more of a beat and all that. But, like, as you hear in the clip, like, I don't usually expect something like that from Katamari. And yet, it fits the level it plays in perfectly. It's a level where it's nighttime and you're at a campground and you're collecting fireflies to light up the night. And it's just really, really peaceful. That level, I mentioned 2 bad gimmick levels up above. This is a good gimmick level. It's great. It's very nice and calming, and just this piece is gorgeous. And the first time I heard it, it really, really resonated with me, but I think I forgot about it until I was looking into what the Critical 5 should be for this game, and it just hit me again. And this song is just so nice.
Yeah, that sounds like the perfect pairing for that kind of level, for sure. I get vibes of like a credits theme for a Miyazaki film.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I could hear that 100%.
It's a really interesting vibe. And yeah, like you said, totally different than what you'd think for Katamari. But when it's so peaceful and nice and reflective like that, yeah, totally fits.
I think it's the accordion that does it.
Yes.
That's what does it. Yeah. Critical track number 4. I'm not going to say it's there just for the name, because it's not, but the name certainly helps, because it's just called Houston. This is for all you Houstoners out there. All 3 of you that listen to the show. I don't actually know. I don't know what our demographics are like in Texas. This song was composed by Hideki Tobita. Vocals by Katamari Robo. Alrighty. I think this song has a heck of a groove to it. It's very good. And once again, it's a song that just feels impossible to not want to bob your head to. Like, you gotta tap your foot. And it's just so good. I especially kind of like the effect on the voice during the chorus because it's just incredibly Katamari. Like, it's the most Katamari thing possible to put that robot effect on the vocalist during the chorus. It's just so good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. That's a very Katamari thing. And, you know, if the vocalist's name is Katamari Robo, yep, ding, right on the money. Yeah, great groove. I definitely found myself bobbing my head a little bit to it. Though I would not assign the word Houston to it.
I imagine the name comes from the fact that space is a big
okay.
thing.
Sure.
Maybe. I don't know. The song definitely doesn't give me Texas vibes. I'll give you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's more supposed to be a reference to like NASA and stuff like that. That is my guess. I don't know that for sure. Critical check number 5. I saved the best for last, guys. This is my favorite song of the game. This song is so good. Critical check number 5 is Everlasting Love. Named after the feeling I have for this song. This was composed by Akitaka Tohyama, which I did not know before I picked the composer to cover for this game. Vocals by Alisa. Tohyama apparently also provides the bass and guitar parts for this song, so that's him you can hear playing the instruments. This is, like I said, my absolutely favorite song on the soundtrack, and the only reason it is not my favorite song in the franchise is because Katamari Forever actually has a different version of this song that serves as my favorite game song ever, possibly my favorite song in general. This song plays during another gimmick level where the gimmick is speed. You are on a racetrack and the Katamari you're using moves way faster than usual. And the song and the level just both feel really good. It's possibly my favorite level in Katamari, half because of this song and half because it's just a fun level to play. And oh man, the vocalist is so good and the guitarist is so good. And I really, really love this song. It's so good. It's the best song in the game in my opinion. I don't think I need to say any more on that.
Yeah, this one stands out. It's peppy J-Rock, and honestly, while listening to the chorus, I had the "You Are Smart" parts just in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was such a good mashup on that Katamari Forever soundtrack.
Eventually, we will talk about Katamari Forever, and that'll be the last Katamari game I can talk about. And that will 100% be on the Critical 5 because it's so good. But this is where it started, and this song is also still so good. So let's get into the cutting room floor. I'm very excited to hear your thoughts on the first one. Because it sure is a thing. I have 2 songs on the cutting room floor, and the first is Sun-Baked Savannah. This song was arranged by Yoshihito Yano and Yu Miyake. No, your episode didn't glitch out or something. It is a Katamari Damacy medley, done almost entirely in animal noises.
I mean, dog barks for the Katamari theme are a choice.
I don't know why this is a thing. I don't know for what purpose this is a thing. I could not mention this song. I'm not joking. This is an actual song that plays during an actual real level of We Love Katamari. This song even has vocals credits on the soundtrack.
Oh no.
The credits are John the dog, Big Mouth the duck, Yuhi the cow, Pei the goat, Booby the pig, Sexy the cat, and New the cow.
Sexy the cat.
They are included in that 33 performers number.
Okay, even though it's all computerized, I don't know.
I don't know if it is, though. What if it's not? I don't know. That could just be samples.
Is there a real pig called Booby out there? I don't know.
I don't know. Is there a real cat named Sexy? Who would name their cat Sexy? I think the answer is probably somebody in Japan.
Yeah.
I don't know. This song is weird. I couldn't not mention this song. It's another one of those songs that has like a different title depending on where you look it up. I believe the title that I most often see it is Killing Hot Savannah. But VGMDB puts it as Sun-Baked Savannah, so that's the name we used. For a more normal song, my second track on the cutting room floor is Disco Prince. That is Disco Star Prince, like an actual star. You can see it if you're looking at the video version, but if you're not, this song is also regularly called Disco X Prince, all one word, so you can probably find it that way. It was composed by Hiroshi Okubo, arranged by Okubo and Yumiake, with vocals by Kenji Ninuma. It is a very synth-heavy song. It's fun. It's not one of my favorites, but I think this song's still a good time. I don't think it would have fit on the Critical 5, but I like it.
The vocal cut in for the drop is fun. I'm always down with, synth and disco-like instrumentation. That's a good time. But yeah, I think it's fitting on the cutting room floor.
Certainly more fitting than animal noises arranged to sound like Katamari on the Rocks.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So what will I never forget about We Love Katamari? It's the last Katamari game I've played and enjoyed. Granted, I've only played Katamari Forever past this. Didn't like it. I finished it. Didn't like it, though. I've never played Beautiful Katamari. Beautiful Katamari is supposed to be pretty good, but it's never been re-released off of the Xbox 360, and it's not backwards compatible.
Weird.
Which is unfortunate, because that's the first thing I looked up when I bought an Xbox was, can I buy and play Beautiful Katamari? And the answer is no. One day I'll play it, though. And obviously I've never played the PSP or Vita games, because even when I had a PSP, I couldn't find a copy of Me and My Katamari, and I've never owned a Vita, so But yeah, I really love the Katamari series overall, though, just in terms of vibe and aesthetic and just weirdness. And again, I will beg you all, if you have not played Katamari Damacy, it is well worth your time. Reroll is available on everything now, and except for next-gen consoles, which is kind of surprising that they didn't just throw that out at the same time PS4 and Xbox One came out, but whatever.
I guess you could play it on Xbox Series S and X, though.
Yeah, that's true. And on PlayStation 5, technically.
Yeah. No, that's yeah. So you can. They may not have next-gen advancements, but it's there.
I mean, it's a PS2 game. What next-gen advancements does it need?
120 frames per second rolling through.
If I can't play Katamari Damacy in 4K, why am I even bothering playing it?
Well, those releases on Xbox One and PS4, they are in 4K. I think they're 4K 60.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe that'll be the first game I play when I get a PlayStation 5.
Maybe. But it's not like those textures got like big buffs or anything like that. It's just all resolution. Anyway, for games about love, Scott loves Ramona. We love Katamari. It's a pretty good theme and good episode this week talking about these soundtracks. So that will do it for us this week. You can find me on Twitter at Pete Speakeasy. Joe is over at the Dobaga. The video version of the show is on the Rhymes with Asia YouTube channel, but you can find that MP3 podcast version, that's the one you really want, on Anonymous Dinosaur at anondino.squarespace.com. You can find Joe's other podcast, Smasterpieces, there, and you can find those podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, on services all around the globe, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, even Spotify. Spotify also has our Spotify playlist, where we have a big old playlist of all the songs that we've talked about in this show that are on Spotify. If it's a video game song, if it's on Spotify, it's getting added to that playlist. Joe, what's being added this week?
Scott Pilgrim is on Spotify, but sadly, Katamari still has not made its way to Spotify. Everybody join me in tweeting, not at Namco, well, maybe Namco too, but join me in tweeting at Columbia Music Group, who apparently are the ones that own the distribution rights to the Katamari soundtracks, and tell them that we want it on Spotify.
I think I saw it on Spotify, but it's region locked.
That would make a lot of sense and also makes me sad. Also, I haven't added it to the Spotify playlist yet because I forgot about it until like literally just now. Kingdom Hearts 3 showed up on Spotify.
Well then.
Like the full soundtrack while we were on break. So that's cool. Those will be going on the playlist from our Best of 2019 episode. So look forward to that.
Very exciting. More additions there. And when you're done listening there, you can find us on social media at Soundchat OST. You can leave feedback for us, how we're doing with these episodes, but also games that you can recommend that we cover. I think, Joe, you even put out a post where, we're kind of fielding those, especially for the start of the 2021 calendar year, since that is right now in the works. So definitely give your feedback. Let us know. Working on some bonus tracks for you. And also, Joe, hit us with that merch website again.
Absolutely. That merch website is teespring.com/stores/anonymous dinosaur if you want to put our logos on your chest.
Or wherever. All right. And next week should be a very exciting episode. Joe, who are we talking about next week?
We are, and it's about time, talking about Tina Guo.
I will be talking about Mike Moraski. All right, Joe, let's play us out.
I had to find a remix of Everlasting Love. That was the only option. Peace was never an option, and neither was any song that's not Everlasting Love. I found a cover by YouTuber Michelle Heafy, Heafy. She is very good, absolutely kills the vocals, and it's got some good acoustic guitar action in there too. So please enjoy that.
Thank you so much for listening this week on Original Soundchat. We'll see you next time. Take care.
I love you, 息が止まるくらい So I miss you 強く抱きしめていつまでも